Hello there, my name's Brandon and I make pictures out of tiny squares, and when we're making our own art, it can be tough to know if we've made any mistakes or just if there's anything that we can do to improve it into a final version. So for this video, I put together a list of 5 things that I do pretty much with every single piece of pixel art that I make to kind of proofread it and make edits and just review it in general. And hopefully these tips will be useful for you as well. So let's get right into it. The first tip is also the one I'd consider the most important. It's something that I do frequently while making a piece, and that is flipping the canvas, or in other words, checking the mirror image of the artwork. When we're making something, our eyes get so used to the orientation that we draw it in, so when it's flipped to the mirror image, it kind of gives our brains a refreshed view and makes it easy to catch things that might look off, such as incorrect anatomy, misplaced details, and a review of general composition. It's probably the closest you'll get to feeling like you're seeing it for the first time, even though you're the one making it. Often the programs we work in have some kind of quick tool to achieve this as well, like the flip horizontal option in Sprite. Or even just by toggling the selection of a particular object layer and flipping it around to minus 100% while holding Alt. The refreshing effect of flipping your canvas is one of those experiences that doesn't really translate well on video, so you kind of need to try it out for yourself within your own artwork to appreciate the benefit here. The next tip is something I do mostly when making characters, and that's to check the silhouette. Despite whatever cool costume, accessories, or pose a character may have, part of their readability is derived from the overall shape. I usually copy the full character into a new layer and then fill that entire layer selection with black. Looking at the silhouette of your work gives you an alternate perspective of the kind of visual language at play in the artwork. It's also a good opportunity to spot if there are any inconsistencies in the line work, such as spotting jagged sections that are supposed to be straight, or the way that a certain curve looks. The next proofreading tip has to do with coloring a piece, especially when selecting our own custom colors from scratch rather than using a preset palette. And that tip is to view the colors as a palette layout rather than just looking at them in the artwork. I usually take an eyedropper tool to select each of the colors, then drop down a little palette off to the side of the image on a different layer. In Sprite, you can also go up to the palette options and select Create Palette from Current Sprite to achieve this. What this does is allow us to review our color selections without the context and influence of the artwork getting in the way. There's something about seeing just the colors all at the same size in relation to each other that makes this more clear. And we can ask ourselves if we really like how these colors look together. In pixel art, we're often working with restricted color palettes, and this technique helps us catch if we're really making the most of these low color counts. On the topic of color, the fourth tip is to review the entire image in Grayscale. By removing the influence of color altogether, it allows us to observe just the contrast, that is, how light or dark everything is in relation to each other. This could also be referred to as the color values. From here we can decide if everything is reading as intended, or maybe there are some areas where the colors could be lighter or darker to get a better read overall. For example, maybe the shade color we chose for our character's outfit isn't quite dark enough and we didn't really notice until viewing it in Grayscale like this. I also find it easier to get a good read on the composition when looking at the Grayscale image because you'll notice where your eye is being drawn to just based on that contrast. The way I like to set this up is by creating a new layer, give it an awesome name like Value Check or whatever suits you, then fill that entire layer with black. From here, go into the layer properties and change the blending mode to the color option. I like to keep this layer at the top of my layer organization, that way I can toggle it on and off throughout the process of making a piece if I need to review the color value. And now it's time for the fifth and final proofreading tip, and it's a really easy one because it actually requires you to do absolutely nothing, and that is simply to take a break. If we get really wrapped up in what we're working on, especially if it's in an art block or frustrated kind of way, it becomes easy to miss glaring mistakes in the artwork. Taking a break allows us to come back with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective, and that can benefit the art not only in a technical way, but also in what can be brought to it creatively after stepping away for a bit. The same kind of goes for when we think everything is all good too. If we finish a piece that we're super excited about, we'll immediately want to share it with people, but I've started this thing now where when I finish a piece, I'll sleep on it. Wait a day or so before sending it out into the world. And more often than not, when I come back to it, I'll catch a couple small mistakes, or maybe in that time I'll have thought of some neat additions to elevate the final product even further. That's the power of doing nothing. Alright, so those are my tips for proofreading your own artwork. If anyone has their own unique ways for checking over your art, please share them in the comments. I'm always open to new tips and tricks to improve the process. So I hope you found these tips useful. Thank you for watching, and take care and keep it square.